very start, the walkout onto that debate stage in Atlanta, both the current president, President Biden, and former President Donald Trump walking out onto that stage. There was no handshake. It wasn't anticipated, though there wasn't even a look toward one another as this debate began. The tone was set right away. They debated on issues including the economy, inflation, jobs, handling of COVID, both during the Trump years and during the Biden years. Foreign policy, Afghanistan, how both handled Afghanistan, the role of NATO in talking about Ukraine, what the future of Ukraine looks like. They talked about January 6th and whether or not former President Donald Trump would denounce those who stormed the Capitol. That was asked of him by the current president, President Biden. There was not an answer to that particular question, though they did spar, going back and forth multiple times. The split screen allowing the country to examine both of these men, and one of the main questions going into the night, because again, as we had mentioned, they both have been president now. Americans know their records, they've studied them, they feel like they know them. This was going to be a test tonight in aptitude. There was that moment not far from the beginning of the debate when President Biden was talking about the debt and talking about taxing billionaires in this country, where he was describing what the effect of the policy that he was proposing would have. And then there was that pause, about 5-6 seconds, where he didn't say anything, and then he went on to say, we finally beat Medicare. A bit of a non sequitur, it seemed. We'll be waiting to see how the Biden team explains that out. Let's get to both camps and find out how they believe their candidates did. Rachel Scott live in Atlanta in the spin room. Rachel, what are we hearing from Donald Trump's campaign tonight?
Well, I'll tell you that a senior advisor to the Trump campaign tells me that they let out a huge exhale from the moment that President Biden answered that very first question. Sources within the Trump campaign said they were asking what was wrong with President Biden, what was wrong with his voice. They do feel like the former president tonight stayed on message. And so much of the talk heading into this was, which version of Donald Trump are we going to get? Were we going to get the combative Donald Trump that we saw in that debate in 2020, where he's interrupting, it turned into a shouting match? We did not get that version of Donald Trump tonight. This is exactly what his advisors wanted to see. They wanted to see the former president take questions on tough issues like January 6th, even his legal troubles, and then pivot back to the issues they believe are winning issues in this election: immigration, crime, the economy. We saw the former president do that many times. I will tell you, David, that out on the campaign trail, the former president does use a lot more harsh rhetoric when it comes to talking about certain issues, including immigration. He vows the largest deportation in American history. He says that immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country. He didn't go so far as to repeat any of that incendiary rhetoric that we hear a lot of times on the campaign trail. One thing was clear, though, David, this turned personal rather quickly. You had President Biden call him a convicted felon, and then you had the former president fire back and call his son a convicted felon. And we are told that during these commercial breaks, these candidates did not look at each other, they did not talk, and obviously they did not shake hands on that debate stage tonight, David.
Yeah, that was another first that we witnessed. Rachel Scott, thank you. The Trump campaign happy with Donald Trump's performance tonight, the moment when President Biden did point out the fact that his opponent is a convicted felon, another split screen moment when he talked about what he was convicted of. There was some head nodding from the former President Donald Trump, which again made for a moment unlike, and there were many moments here that we have seen before. I am curious about that particular moment in the beginning, because so much had been said about President Biden going into tonight. A lot of eyes across the country watching, again, this sort of aptitude test for both gentlemen. One is 78, one is 81 years old. There was the moment, the pause, and sort of a non sequitur there just to finish the thought. Any reaction from the Biden campaign tonight, from the White House tonight, on that and the rest of the evening?
Look, there is no question. This is not the night that the Biden campaign wanted or needed. They were going into this hoping that the president's performance would put to rest those remaining concerns about his age and his fitness for office. It is hard to see how what we just saw did that, how it put to bed those concerns. He had a rough start, as you noted. He was rambling. He struggled at times to collect his thoughts. There was that pause. Now, we are told that the president had a cold tonight. Perhaps that did play a role somehow. But the Biden campaign knows that this was not a strong night for them. They are stressing this was just one night. They know that this race is not going to be determined or won in one night, that they can still go on offense in the days ahead. But this was the largest audience that he had in this race so far. It was a missed opportunity. And I think that is the reaction that you are hearing from a lot of Democrats privately. You know, look, Biden did have strong moments. He did try to hold Trump accountable. They had strong exchanges. He tried to hold his feet to the fire on abortion. He called him out for being a convicted criminal. I think the concern and the real risk here is that the substance, the message is being lost in how it is being delivered.
But even on abortion rights, there was a moment when they were talking about Donald Trump and the overturning of Roe, Donald Trump on the campaign trail, and as president took credit for that. He did deliver. That was a promise he made to his supporters and delivered on that promise. Now he has to answer to that, given he's running for president again. And it seemed in that particular moment, for example, President Biden turned to immigration instead of spelling out the stark differences between these two. And we know this is a deeply personal issue that does divide Americans.
And he did try to call out Donald Trump, who, by the way, was spewing a lot of false statements and mistruths. And you did see the president trying to set the record straight, defend his agenda and what he has done, and really make clear to voters, what the former president did when he was in office and what he could do if he were to win re-election again. But then there were those moments where he would pivot to another topic, or he would seem to lose his train of thought a little bit. The question is, how did it land? How are voters perceiving this? And that is what we really need to see now in the coming days.
David, I think we have to be very clear. This was a very bad night for Joe Biden. I have been talking to Democrats as this debate progressed, and you are starting to hear at least privately discussions among Democrats about whether or not Biden can effectively go on with this campaign against Donald Trump. Donald Trump did go through rapid fire lies. I mean, a machine gun of lies at times during this debate. He said things like everybody wanted Roe v. Wade repealed, everything was rocking good when he was president, there were no wars. The Unselect Committee deleted all the evidence that Nancy Pelosi refused 10,000 National Guard troops. None of that was true, and Biden was not effectively able to bring the argument back to him. I talked to one Democratic member of Congress who is a strong supporter up till now of Joe Biden, saying to me, I am in a state of shock. He is diminished to an extent that has become undeniable. Biden's going to have to answer these questions. This was not just one night in the campaign. This was the night in the campaign so far. Another Democrat said, I wish this performance had been during the Democratic primary. If it were, we would have had a different nominee.
No question in your mind, given what you're hearing from your sources, that this is a conversation that's now underway.
It's a conversation that is being conducted privately at this point, David. The big question is, will any of it become public? Because it is very difficult to imagine a scenario where Biden can be replaced as the nominee. You would have to somehow open up the convention. Biden would have to, be the one leading it and saying, I'm going to release my delegates. There's absolutely no indication that he is willing to do this. And no Democrat is going to want to further damage Biden beyond what we saw tonight by being the first to come out and say that publicly, unless it's determined that there is truly a viable path to find another nominee.
And certainly we don't want to get ahead of ourselves as reporters either. So let's bring in Donna Brazil, ABC News analyst, former DNC chair. Donna, what do you make of President Biden's performance tonight?
Well, I think there were many missed opportunities. We wanted a couple of doubles, a few singles. And yes, we wanted him to hit it out of the ballpark. But the fact is that I think the president was trying to not only get his message across, which at times he had a hard time, but he was also trying to set a narrative, set a pace, and he never really got an opportunity to reach that point. So I believe it was a missed opportunity. Will it change the trajectory of the race? Perhaps on the margins, but that's why we have 131 days. Many Democrats are disappointed. Some Democrats are telling me, well, look what the other guy did. He didn't hit it out the ballpark. And half of what he said, well, everybody knows tomorrow will be fact checked, and we know it was not true. The bottom line is this race is going to continue. There's no effort underway right now that I know of, and I think I would know at least on the third or fourth phone call if there was an effort to replace the nominee. He's still the most experienced person in the race. And I do believe the American people want steady hands at the wheel.
And you thought that was steady tonight? You're comfortable with his performance?
Like I said, he didn't score the home run. We wanted him to hit it out the ballpark so we can enjoy the rest of the summer and maybe, in my case, just have another vacation. But look, the fact is that Joe Biden, tried to get his message out to the American people that I'm here to fight for you. I'm here to lower the cost. But most importantly, I'm here to continue to make America strong and more united. He couldn't get that message out. He was busy fact checking, busy looking, saying, I can't believe it. Joe Biden had to talk to the American people and hit it out the ballpark. It was a missed opportunity, but he's still in the race. This race is not over.
Really interesting the point you make there, Donna, and I just want to underscore that because I think it's important that I follow up on the idea that, and you heard Mary and John talk about this, some of the falsehoods that might have come from the other podium, that you believe that the President Biden was in some ways surprised or trying to fact check in real time what he was witnessing on that stage and lost his own message in the process.
That's the problem. Donald Trump came in as the rally Trump. You want to know what Donald Trump showed up? The one that I get to see every weekend at a rally because I watch Donald Trump. I listen to Donald Trump. He didn't have to make it up because that's what he's been saying. And it's been good enough for over 40, 50%, maybe 50% of the American people. Joe Biden had a difficult task tonight. And that was to tell the American people, give the narrative, here's what I'm doing, and here's what I plan to do over the next 4 years. Instead, I think he was trying to fact check. And I believe it was a missed opportunity, but he scored a lot of singles, and you'll see a lot of pundits, including some of my colleagues on the DNC, that will be a little nervous. I'm not nervous. I know Joe Biden. He'll come back.
Donna Brazil, our thanks to you as always. Reince Priebus, I want to get your reaction as well. You heard Donna use the word disappointed.